Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, we have made it. Football is finally here. The Cowboys have a preseason game today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm excited. It's always a long wait, and it always starts to accelerate from this point, and things kind of get going quickly and start rolling downhill, and suddenly we're knee deep in football. But it's always nice to kind of take a moment and recognize, hey, this is the start of the first in a long series of weeks where we're going to have football almost every weekend.
Now, I do want to warn people out there. It's going to look like football a little bit. Like, you're going to see Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. You're going to hear the NBC music. They're going to show great shots of the stadium. But the play on the field, Landon, pretty quickly is going to remind you why the Hall of Fame game is not so much fun.
Yeah, this is not the regular season 2021 Dallas Cowboys that are going to be playing in this game. I think it is by almost any stretch of the imagination. So, we'll talk about who's playing. But yes, there's a strong caveat that although this is football, it's not quite full NFL football yet.
It's like the most watered down version of football you can have, but that's okay. We'll take it. First and foremost, before we talk about who's playing in this game, who to watch, who's not playing, how much weight should this game carry, like for evaluations? Like when Mike McCarthy and the front office sit down at the end of August and they're trying to decide who's on the 53-man roster. How much do you weigh performances in games like this?
I mean, I think you have to weigh it pretty heavily. I certainly think that there is a tendency to, especially for us, maybe on the outside, to overweigh, necessarily training camp practices and that sort of thing, and then to kind of poo-poo preseason games just because they aren't nearly the number of reps that you see in practice. But the truth is that ultimately these guys are being judged by their performance in these games. The practice, how well they practice is ultimately inconsequential if they can't translate that to the game. So you need to have your eye out for guys who are specifically gamers, because guys who are the opposite way, the guys who are practicers, they aren't super useful to you ultimately. So you want to keep your eye out for guys who, all right, maybe they didn't practice that well, or maybe they take too many chances in practice, or are too risky, or just kind of can't seem focused in practice. But maybe once the light turns on, they really start playing well. And I think those are the kind of things you need to look out for. I think we talked yesterday that it seems, that a kind of valuable comparison would be like, one game performance is probably equal to 3 or 4 practice days worth of performance, right?
Sure.
Like I think that's probably some kind of similar equation. I mean, I just think it's easy to poo-poo preseason games because it's a limited sample size, but I think it's important to realize that NFL is a limited sample size. So you need to take advantage of those opportunities when presented to you.
And I'll actually go on the opposite side of this too. Like, you talked about guys that have a good game at bad practices, but to me, I'm more interested in the guys that have really good practices but perform poorly in games.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a name that might hurt you a little bit. John Veya Johnson. Remember him from the last time the Cowboys had a preseason game? Fantastic in training camp. Seems like he was dominating training camps, and then he gets to the preseason games and he can't catch anything. He can't catch anything, right? Like, he had 3 or 4 drops in a single game. And while we saw flashes in camp, it was pretty clear the game was a little too big for him. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't happen. Like, I hope Nashon Wright doesn't get out there and forgets how to play football. That's where I get concerned more than on the opposite end of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these guys, down roster guys, they're going to get multiple opportunities. There's lots of football that's going to be played in the next 8 days. So they're going to get the chance in these games. They're going to get a chance in these Rams practices, which will be very game-like. They'll be situational and they'll be against a different team. I think that's about as game-like as you can get in a practice. And then they got to play the Arizona Cardinals very quickly after that. So there's going to be I'm not even worried about a small sample size right now because there's plenty of opportunity in the next few days for these guys to get a chance to get a good solid sample size out there. But it's their chance to make sure they take advantage of it. And and I think you mentioned some of these guys, like the guys that have shown up in practice, the drumbeat, like we talked about. That drumbeat needs to continue through these preseason games. It's not enough to have that drumbeat through OTAs and through training camp practices. It needs to make its way into these preseason games if you want to have any hope of continuing the drumbeat into the regular season.
All right, we're going to talk about some guys that we're really excited to see on both sides of the ball. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Brockauto.com. It's a family business that has been serving auto parts to customers online for over 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules, brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The rockauto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand specifications and prices that you prefer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. All right, let's start on offense. Let's do this. Let's talk about the guys that aren't going to play because that's it's a pretty long list.
Knock them out real quick.
I will read through them all. Bradley and I, Josh Ball, Francis Bernard, Amari Cooper, Chauncey Golston, CJ Goodwin, Tristan Hill, Malik Hooker, Blake Jarwin, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jordan Lewis, Zach Martin, Dak Prescott, Tyron Smith, TJ Vasher, and Greg Zuerlein. And I should clarify, those are guys that are just not traveling to the game. The list of guys that probably won't play, but that will travel will include a lot of other guys like we might not see like Randy Gregory. We might not see Lyle Collins. We'll have to wait and see. But it's pretty clear the Cowboys are going to be without their probably top 20, 25 guys in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking here and I don't see Zeke's name on this list.
Yeah, he's not playing. There's no way.
Yeah, but exactly. He falls under that category of guys who
Michael Gallup's not playing. CD Lamb's not
trip.
playing.
Yeah. Making the trip, but probably not playing, right? So, I think none of these names surprised me, honestly. No. And I think I probably would have expected a longer list. But again, maybe they're making the trip and then, Zeke is like, he wants to go back to Ohio probably. See some old friends.
Well, that's the list of guys that have missed practice over the last couple of days, right? Like, and some of the guys that are rehabbing from injury, like Blake Jarwin's been practicing, but they're not going to put him out there considering he's been kind of one day on, one day off.
Yeah. And they weren't probably going to put him in the game anyways, so they've got a lot of tight ends they want to look at and, they'll probably see a healthy dose of McCool. I don't even know how much you'll see Schultz. Maybe you'll see Schultz for
a series of two.
Series, maybe. I mean, honestly, I think the only people that are of consequence that are going to be playing in this game, you look at some of the young offensive linemen like Biotish, Williams, McGovern. I think McGovern's going to be playing a lot.
Yep.
Some of these young defensive linemen, I think you'll probably see Gallimore a little bit more than you would normally because he never played a preseason game.
I agree.
Osa, Digizua. Some of these, maybe, I don't know. Hamilton probably will have to play just because they need the snaps, and he's not, so important, I guess, necessarily in the scheme of things. So, it's and then there's a list of linebackers they're going to have to be rotating in. They have lots of them. So, none of these names surprise me really. It's really what's going to be interesting is that it does seem like these are kind of more heavily skewed towards guys that would be taking snaps for you on offense because there's so many more defensive players that would take snap during the course of a game. So the defense is probably going to have more of their starting talent on the field for this game than the offense. I don't know what starting, but playing talent, right? At least, right? Because there's guys that are second or third team guys who,
I think Micah Parsons might play a couple snaps.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like I said, the only guy on the starting offense that I imagine that will get any kind of real, you want to call Schultz a starter in some way, maybe, then Biotish and Williams. Outside of that, it's going to be all backups essentially.
I agree. You're not going to see anybody of note, really, but there are some guys that we're excited to see. So let's start with the offense.
Absolutely.
Garrett Gilbert, man, I would love for the Cowboys to just say, hey, we're going to give you the entire first half to get into a rhythm. We'll give you a playmaker or two out there that that'll play the whole half with you. But this is a really good opportunity. He played well against Pittsburgh last year. Maybe he can do it again in the Hall of Fame game. That's probably the guy I'm the most excited to see on offense. Who are you looking forward to watching?
Yeah, I mean Gilbert, and he'll get an opportunity out there because they'll still have Cedric out there, they'll still have Noah Brown, and those guys are more than competent against, and Fahoku and Turner, and they've got still a nice complement of receivers out there against whatever the Steelers will be throwing out as defensive backs. So I think they'll be able to make hay there. The concerns I have are on the offensive line, because once you start getting kind of several levels deep, it can kind of stave off. So you're going to see probably a lot of Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele. I have a friend named Eric Steele. Shout out to Eric. So Terrence Steele. You'll see a lot of. I think you'll probably see a lot of the
Isaac.
Yeah, I was going to say the
Alicorn.
Alicorn, the Mexican national player that they have on the team has really developed. I think he's playing more guard now. But you're going to see a lot of him. It's
too bad Josh Ball's not playing, because that's somebody I really wish was in this game. Just really quick, I want to go back to the receivers for a second. Just a fun little story before we jumped on the show. I had somebody who's very close to the Steelers ask me, "Hey, are CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup going to play? Because we need to figure out who our starting corners are for the Steelers." And I was like,
you guys should maybe call the coaching staff.
So they asked, so who's going to be playing a lot of receiver? And I said, Malik Turner, Aaron Parker, and Britton Eagles. And they replied back, who? And I said, yeah, well, that's the Hall of Fame game for you. So, but that doesn't mean I'm not excited to see Semi Fahoku and Aaron Parker and some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to definitely mention Osiris Mitchell, who has been an absolutely huge name out here in camp and has made play after play after play. After Malik Turner, he's probably been the most noticeable kind of down roster wide receiver out here. There's lots of these guys that you want to see them get out there and get reps against another team, just because you want to see what you've got. I think for me, offensively, it's not as – there's a couple names that are interesting to me, but the vast majority of the interesting stuff that is going to happen in this game is going to be on the defensive side of the ball, just because of the players that will be on the field that might actually resemble something close to what might be deployed by the Cowboys on the defense in the regular season.
Again, there's guys that I'm excited to see, like Sean McEwen. I would like to see Sean McEwen play an entire half. Pair him with Garrett Gilbert. I think that's a lot of fun. Nick Eubanks, I kind of liked him coming out of Michigan, another tight end that's kind of fun. I don't know how he's looked at camp so far. You might be able to tell me better.
He's looked okay. I mean, he hasn't been super flashy like McEwen, but I mean, he's certainly this is an opportunity, right? Is he a gamer? Is he a guy that can go out there and really show something? I'm interested to see Connor Williams as a center in the game, because that's something that he's likely going to need to do during the regular season. He doesn't have a ton of experience playing center, and the snaps have been an adventure at times. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of translates into a regular season situation. And then there's just a ton of guys who there's a huge list of guys who it just feels like we haven't gotten to see a ton of reps from them, because they're just not offered a ton of reps. They're down roster players that just aren't getting the same number of reps. But I'm also excited just to see a whole bunch of Quentin Bohanna. I'm excited to see a whole bunch of these kind of down roster draft pick guys that, some of them have been rotating in a little bit more than others. But I think, now getting to see extended looks at Jabril Cox. Extended looks at, like you said, Fahoku and some of these down. It's too bad Chauncey Golston isn't going to be able to make it because let's see him. I'll tell you what. Here's another name that you guys, if I haven't mentioned his name yet, then that's my bad. But going back and watching the videos and talking about guys who are going to be playing a lot in this game, Rondelle Carter. He's a guy.
It's funny that you mentioned him because he actually was higher on. Not that it matters really, but he was higher on the initial depth chart that the Cowboys put out than I think a lot of people anticipated.
If you go back and watch practice, it makes sense because he's all over the place, and he's playing inside, he's playing outside, he's having success at both at different times.
Yep.
And on top of that, he's on every special team from what it looks like. He's on, or at least he's on a ton of them, and it sounds like they really like him in that role. And he, if you remember last year, they were really upset when he got signed by the other team. Well, who was it that got signed? The Colts.
That was actually a big fight in the front office because apparently the front office loved Rondelle Carter, and it didn't seem like the coaching staff was quite on the same page. So Rondelle Carter went from the practice squad to the Colts active roster. And the Cowboys wanted just to elevate him, put him on the active roster, but some of the other guys that the coaching staff decided, hey, we don't need him right now. They got lucky that he was able to come back, but that's a good name.
He's looked really good. Yeah, and he's looked really good. And just and speaking of a guy who could potentially have a role on this team that we're not necessarily expecting, guys like that, right, who are valuable special teams players, who are versatile on the way that they can play defensive tackle and defensive end. Those are the guys who may not show up flashy, though I think he has flashed at different points. It's just kind of tough with all the noise, right? Those are the kind of guys who are surprise, 53-man roster guys because they're glue guys, right? They're so important to your roster to make sure that your numbers work out. Yep. And if he has a big game, I think he could easily solidify or greatly strengthen his position on a roster spot.
All right, let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all of the action on BetOnline. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device and sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, just a couple more names. We'll see how much Micah Parsons plays. I don't imagine it's more than a series or two at most. You mentioned Jabril Cox. That's somebody I'm interested to see. What about our guy, Boss Man Fat, Kelvin Joseph? Do we anticipate him playing in this game?
I do. I mean, I think he should play a ton, honestly. I think it would be good for him. You see that Anthony Brown, if I'm not mistaken, was on this list. Or no, he actually wasn't. But
I don't think he's going to play. Him and Diggs,
I don't think he's going to play a ton. Yeah, I mean, just because you've got all these down roster cornerbacks you need to parse out that need these reps. Robinson, Mayshawn Wright.
We'll see about Israel Muhammad. Does he play any corner in this game? You know what I mean? So
all those guys need reps, and there's no CJ Goodwin. So if it was me, no Jordan Lewis too. I mean, so just another body that they don't have. So I expect to see a heavy dose of Wright, of Joseph, of Canada, of some of these Reggie Robinson, the guy that they just signed from the Jets, whose name I still can't remember.
Brown, right?
Kira Brown or something like that. There's just a number of these guys, and they haven't all gotten the reps with the ones or just a ton of reps. I would say these guys have gotten a lot more reps than probably some of their other positional equivalents because they have been rotating these guys in to kind of see what they have here. Yep. And I saw a ton of it this yesterday too. Was just kind of the mix and match of defensive back groups with front seven, just kind of, seeing all the different pairings. It'll be interesting to see if Trayvon Diggs plays.
I wouldn't play him if I was down.
Yeah. I mean, and if he does, I certainly wouldn't imagine it to be more than a series. So, but honestly, you're right. They probably won't. And then that means that we're going to see a heavy dose of our two young rookie wide receivers. And then some of the other guys like Canada, cornerbacks, and then Canada and some of these other guys who we've seen a lot in camp so far and seen good things. Now they're going to get some real time and exposure against another team.
All right, so it's my favorite part of the show. We haven't done this in a while, Landon.
Oh my God, are you really going to make me do this? You're going to make me predict?
No, I'm not. No. The point total for this game on BetOnline is 33 points. Do we think 33 or total points will be scored in this game?
Well, I need some answers from you, Pittsburgh Steeler beat writer. Who are the backup quarterbacks for the Steelers at this point?
So Mason Rudolph is going to start. I know way too much about this. Mason Rudolph is going to start the game. He's going to get a series, and then it's Dwayne Haskins for the entire first half, and then it's Josh Dobbs for the entire second half. So those will be your Steeler quarterbacks for today.
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to get there.
Listen, the hype around Dwayne Haskins in Pittsburgh is loud right now. Like I guess they told him he's the successor behind Ben Roethlisberger. So they're excited. Let's just say that.
I'm sure he'll pick up for him in 2031 when Ben retires. I don't know. I mean, I think 33 points. That may be a lot,
right?
I don't know. I that seems like a lot to me.
Especially for a preseason game. Well, and here's the difference. Like, this game is going to be sloppy for a number of different reasons because both teams probably are going to have 40 guys combined that aren't playing. The Cowboys really haven't practiced tackling at all, correct? Like, have they done any taking to the ground tackling yet?
Has any team practiced tackling yet?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh actually does?
Every padded practice is take you to the ground tackle. Yes.
I didn't know that was allowed.
It's going to be well. I'm not sure if it's allowed or not, but I'm just
go on. Okay, cool. I love that we're carrying on the tradition of making sure that Pittsburgh never gets penalized for anything they do. There's no finer tradition in the NFL than that. To be honest, so.
Yeah, but that's honestly the truth. Every padded practice has been full out tackle. So the tackling might be a little bit different in this game. That's all right. It's the Hall of Fame game. I'm excited. Football is back. This is incredible. We're making some tacos tonight to get ready for the game. Woo! We're going to do some smoking on the smoker. So it's officially football season. We cannot wait to break down all of the action. Remember to download, subscribe to the Locked On Cowboys podcast and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll be back on YouTube. We'll give our player evaluations. We'll talk about the final outcome of the game. No, we won't be talking about that because it does not matter. Unless the Cowboys win, then we'll talk.
Then we're going to talk about those valuable last few minutes of the game. We pulled that victory from the jaws of defeat.
Do the Cowboys even have a punter they're taking into this game?
It's our kicker. It's Hunter Nessweiler. I think he's doing both, right? So.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be such a train wreck. I can't
game.
Wait,
football game.
Yeah, football game. Follow Landon at McCool BCB. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we'll see you next time.